Welcome to That Betting Show, Monday, August 19th. I'm Ted Savransky at Teddy_covers on Twitter. Donnie gets a day off because he's flying to Miami right now for the Sportsbook Review Conference, which means Drew Martin going to fill in as our guest host today at Drew Martin Bets. Drew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Teddy. I know losing Donnie is a big loss. Hopefully we don't lose too much from the show. I'm already down here in Miami. Donnie's on his way, so it should be a good time down here. But, Teddy, we got hot topics. Talking the NFL and the Raiders. Front office growing tired of AB's antics, man. He's all over the place. He's got helmet issues, foot issues, not sure what's going on there. And it sounded like just yesterday, Teddy, there were some murmurs here of the coaching staff, the front office, really turning up the heat on him. I don't know. What are you thinking here?
Well, I mean, the quote's pretty clear from Mayock. You're all in or you're all out for Mr. Brown, who, again, signed a huge free agent deal, is supposed to be a difference maker for the Raiders team that's lined at 6 wins this year. And obviously the helmet issue is continued. And Drew Rosenhaus gave us an interesting quote. Quote, he wore this helmet in Pee Wee football, high school football, college at Central Michigan, and his entire 9-year career. People keep saying to me there's 2,000 players that are wearing approved helmets, but there are very few, if any, that have worn the same helmet their entire career. He's a wide receiver. He gets hit over the middle. People are trying to take his head off. He's a big target. He's had concussions before. This helmet has kept him safe. He's had brutal hits. We're trying to find a way to work it out. The helmet is the most important piece of equipment, and he's had the same one every single snap he's played in his football career. It's a major issue for him. We're kind of mocking it. The media is kind of mocking it, but clearly this is an issue for Antonio Brown, and clearly, Drew, what's happening or not happening in training camp with Brown on the field likely to affect the Broncos, the Raiders-Broncos line. Week 1, we've already seen money ticking towards Denver. Oakland opened 3 in that game, bet down to 1.5.
Yeah, Teddy, wild story. You'd think, especially now in today's age, with the helmet and the head issues being so important, that wouldn't still be the case. But hey, it's the Raiders. A lot going on in that locker room, as we know. Teddy, we got MLB, the weekend update. Nationals getting hot, man. They're kind of looking to run away with this wild card, Teddy. Heck, maybe even reel in the Braves in the East. A lot else going on. Astros on a losing streak. They snapped it. What are you seeing on the diamond?
Well, I mean, the Nats scored 30 runs over the weekend and split their 2 games. They lost Saturday 15-14, and they scored 16 yesterday. A nice bounce-back win. But when you're giving up 30 runs over a 2-game span, it speaks volumes not just about your starting pitching, about your bullpen. Washington's bullpen continues to concern me, especially with closer Sean Doolittle going on the injured list. You talk about some of these streaks in the American League, and look, when you have the Orioles, Jays, Royals, Tigers, and Mariners, all more than 20 games under 500. Most of them are like 40 games under 500. When you see these hot streaks in the AL and then cooling off, has a lot to do with how many games they're playing against the true bottom feeders. There's a minimum of 5 in the AL, and what we're seeing is some of these streaks very much schedule related. Well, give the A's credit. They won 3 out of 4 against the Astros over the weekend. They couldn't pull off the sweep, but certainly very much in the wild card mix with Tampa Bay and the loser of Cleveland and Minnesota. That's a 3-way race now for 2 spots for the American League wild card.
Teddy, we got to talk a little bit more about the NFL, man. We got some training camp news, QB competition in Washington, some different news in that. McCoy injury pushes Keenum to the top of the line for the Redskins. We all remember Case Keenum in college, tore it up in the NFL. He's putting together a pretty good career here. We got Aaron Rodgers held out. I'm just thinking that's preseason though here, Teddy. If it was the regular season, I bet you would be playing the quote unquote sore back, kind of running with that for the Packers. But anything else you think we need to talk about here, preseason action?
Well, sure. Let's talk about this Redskins quarterback situation because it's going to cost Jay Gruden his job. And you can see it already. Gruden on the hot seat, the Redskins off back-to-back losing seasons. And from who's going to be our starting quarterback scenario, I don't know that it could go worse for Washington. Colt McCoy has yet to play in the preseason. He's visited a noted foot specialist twice. Remember, he had a broken right leg in December, had 3 offseason surgeries. He's practiced, but he has not played, and the reports are he's not close to playing. So McCoy's out. Then we have Keenum, who started the first two preseason games. What's he, 7 of 16 so far? Case Keenum is not a quality NFL starting quarterback. You know what you're going to get with Case Keenum. You're going to get mediocrity at best. He's not a QB that's going to lead his team to the playoffs. They say, all right, well, what about the rookie? What about Haskins? Boy, if you watch Haskins so far, he's shown a few flashes, but basically across the organization, from the front office to the coaches to the players, everyone's saying the same thing about Haskins. He's talented, but he's got a ton to learn before he's going to be ready to start. If they're starting Dwayne Haskins this year, it's bad news for Gruden, and it's bad news for the Redskins. You talked about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need the preseason, especially when the game plan for Baltimore was we're going to blitz. Lo and behold, an hour, oh, my back hurts. Yeah, that wouldn't happen in the regular season, but it was most assuredly something that happened in the preseason based on what their opponent was doing. Baltimore continues their extraordinary success in the Harbaugh era in the month of August. And whatever, we're hearing, Taysom Hill has clearly moved ahead in the backup race in New Orleans. No, he hasn't. Teddy Bridgewater had the flu or something, and then Hill came in and played against third stringers. Oh, he lit him up. Okay. We see this every year in the preseason where some guy comes in and lights up a third string defense and, he's the second coming of whoever. I'm not sold on Taysom Hill as an NFL starting quarterback yet. And I'll tell you this, Teddy Bridgewater has a better game in him than the one we just saw. And last but not least, yes, Philly signed McCown as their backup quarterback. Every report out of camp, literally, they're universal. Wentz is incredible. Wentz is lighting it up. Wentz is the guy. If McCown ever sees the playing field this year, that's very bad news for Philly. They need Carson Wentz to be their guy for 16 games. They're going to have success.
Teddy, we got next segment up. Overnight line movers, talking about Monster Monday line move here in Houston. Houston, minus 400-ish now, total at 9.5. We got Jackson on the hill for the Detroit Tigers. And I'll tell you, he's put together a nice story here. Kind of under the radar guy. You don't usually see these type of guys pitching fairly well. Over plus 300 ticket here versus Wade Miley. Yeah, it's the Houston Astros lineup, but Wade Miley at minus 400. I don't know, man. That takes a big bankroll. What are you seeing here in this overnight line move?
For sure it takes a big bankroll. Look, this is an insane line move. It speaks volumes about how much the betting markets hate the Tigers in general and Edwin Jackson in particular. Look, Houston's not in a good spot. Returning home. Here's a quote from A.J. Hinch. Not an easy trip for us. We played 3 series in 3 different time zones. No excuses, but it was nice to finish this road trip with a win and get a happy flight. So they played a tough road trip, playoff games against Oakland, 4 of them, and then they're happy on the flight home. You have Wade Miley on the hill coming off his worst start. He gave up a season high in hits and runs, a season low in 3 1/3 innings in his last outing, only 1 strikeout, season low there. And they're $4 favorites. That's how much the markets hate Edwin Jackson and the Detroit Tigers right now. They're trying to get anybody to bet Detroit. The market's not excited. Not finding many big bettors making big bets on the Tigers these days.
Yeah, Teddy, seems like we're seeing a lot more big lines than I remember in the past. I don't know. I could be off on that. We got another line mover here, though, Teddy. Twins line on the move versus the White Sox. And, this is an interesting one because Kyle Gibson's been shaky at times, where Ian Nova, he's been lights out. He's coming up on his last 40 innings pitched, only giving up 2 or 3 runs. Interesting to see here, White Sox. I actually like him at a big plus price. What are you thinking about this line move, Teddy?
And again, we just talked about how the markets hate Edwin Jackson and I almost feel like it's an irrational hate. A guy that every time they see him, they bet against him. Even Nova's the same guy in that regard, despite the fact that he's been brilliant. He's been really good lately. His last 2 starts, 2-0, 9 hits, 3 walks, and an unearned run over 17 innings. So he went a complete game and 8 innings. And in those 2, I think he had 102 and 105 pitches or something like that. He did not throw ridiculous pitch counts. And by the way, the last one came against the Astros. So the markets, despite the fact that Nova is in good current form, they do not like this particular hurdle. And of course, Minnesota's in great form. And a huge bounce back road trip, 5-1 on the road trip to Milwaukee and Texas. The team's first ever 4-game sweep of the Rangers in Arlington. The betting markets responding to Minnesota's strong current form.
Teddy, I got one for you. We got Baltimore Orioles as a favorite. They were minus 140, sitting now in the minus 120-ish range. Have Means on the hill, and he was their best pitcher. Heck, still could be. Started off great, but since he's been shaky as well, been touched a couple times here, man. Baltimore Orioles is a favorite. You interested in that, Teddy?
So, you know me, when I see this stuff, I have to go back and find out. I'm like, how many times has Baltimore been favored this year? So they were pick 'em minus 105 against the Jays on August 1st. They lost that game 11-2. They were short dog. They were minus 103. So that's short dogs against San Fran on June 2nd. Oh, they lost that game 8-1. They were actually legitimate favorites against the Tigers back on May 29th. They were minus 130 in that game. They lost 4-2. So they do have 2 wins as a favorite this year. They did beat Detroit in May. They did beat the White Sox in April as chalk. But that's it. So when the markets are saying Baltimore's got to be chalk in this game because they're playing Kansas City, and Kansas City is god-awful, when the opener says that, the markets are like, not so fast, my friend. Obviously, a little bit of money coming on KC. It's worth noting the Orioles were plus 200 or higher in 12 of their last 13. They're 1-12 of their last 13 ball games and laying today. But plus 200 or higher in every 12 of the 13. They were plus 180 in the 13th. That's because they played the Yankees twice, the Astros, and the Red Sox. This a big step down in class compared to those 3 teams.
Teddy, next segment up. Watch what you bet. We got Monday night football action, NFLX Monday night, the 49ers versus the Denver Broncos. Looks like minus 1.5. The Broncos laying at home. Total of 41, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Teddy, what do you got for Monday night football, bud?
Well, I wish I had a play. So my initial reaction to this line at the opener was San Fran. Absolutely. Garoppolo is going to get at least a cup of coffee in today's game. The quote from John Lynch, he's had a really good camp. I'm hesitant and reluctant to say it, but his recovery from knee has been like flawless. That's allowed him to focus on what he needs to do, and that's play. So Garoppolo's going to play tonight. Probably just a cup of coffee, a series, maybe 2. And then, of course, you have Mullins and Beathard, who are a bet-on duo for preseason football, especially for a team catching points. So my gut reaction initially, let's look at San Fran plus. And then you start finding the details. All right. And, of course, the 49ers kept out, 31 players last week. Many of them are going to play tonight, although not all of them. But where they do continue to have problems on the offensive line. 3 starting linemen missing tonight. And, of course, these 2 teams were in joint practices. From reports that I was reading, the Broncos defensive linemen, quote, dominated practices this week. So that's worth noting on the San Fran side. Of course, on the Denver side, it's not like the offense has been clicking on all cylinders in these joint sessions either, though San Fran will be missing their key pass rushers, D Ford and Nick Bosa. But here's the quote from Richard Sherman. The defense is light years ahead of last year. We're getting the rush. We're still making plays. We still have the intensity. Here's Broncos offense coordinator Rich Scangarello about the first session of joint practice. Quote, I thought it was very choppy. I thought the 49ers defense got after us up front a little bit. My message to the offense, we have to meet their intensity. Part of it's they're playing a different style than they played us in the past. They're doing a good job at it, so it's different for us. So you're not game planning necessarily. We have to adapt and adjust. So we're going to see some Joe Flacco tonight. We're going to see some Drew Lock tonight. We're going to see some Kevin Hogan tonight. All that being said, we haven't gotten a specific, and we could see Brett Ripien tonight as well. Ripien. So we haven't gotten anything from Vic Fangio saying, this is how long the quarterback's going to play. This is how long they're going to play. We did, however, get this quote from Fangio, which in my mind is a bet on quote for a preseason game. Quote, we've got to get ready to go. The season's not waiting. We got to get oiled up and ready to go quickly. We're 3 weeks away and time's running short. That's a sense of urgency here. So my initial lean towards San Fran is staying in the lean category, especially with the money coming in on the 49ers. And frankly, if it gets to pick them, you might want to look at the Denver side.
I like it, Teddy. We also got a quick turnaround heading to the Diamond for the Pirates. After their Williamsport game, they're facing the Nationals now. And an interesting price here, Teddy. This one, I think, Washington sports the more talented pitcher, the better lineup, and it's around a pick'em price here. What, plus 110 towards the Pirates, total at 10. What are you liking in the Nationals versus Pirates on the diamond today, Teddy?
Well, we just talked about how the markets hate the tired retread veterans. They don't like Nova for the White Sox, and they don't like Edwin Jackson for the Tigers. And not that Joe Ross in that same category, but he kind of is. The markets do not like him. The advanced metrics do not show well for him. And this is a guy who has had significant injury concerns and is just coming back. And he's been brilliant. What's he given up? 1 run in the last 17 innings of his 3 starts? 3-0 with a 0.50 ERA and 11 strikeouts in his last 3 starts. No, he's not a strikeout pitcher. No, he's not a guy that's going to wow opposing batters with his ridiculous stuff. But, this is a guy that the markets do not respect. Here's a quote from second baseman Brian Dozier. Quote, "You kind of see him getting that swagger, that confidence on the mound. He's doing what he's supposed to do, which is really cool when somebody kind of gets that." I'm not stepping in front of Washington. They scored 30 runs over the weekend. And, Williams, yeah, he got the win last time out against the Angels. Gave up 5 runs and 5 walks in 5 innings. Pirates came back and won that game 10-7, but I don't trust Pittsburgh to score runs like that on a regular basis. Pirates slapped around again yesterday. Not my money, let's put it this way. Coming on Pittsburgh for this one. Washington or pass for this better.
Yeah, talking about the Pirates, staying in the NL Central, talking wild card battle here. We got Brewers versus the Cardinals. Cardinals minus 128, total at 9.5, Teddy. Davies versus Hudson. Davies, he's not a big velocity guy. And when you start talking about a guy getting, 6+ days of rest, his numbers are not very good. I believe 2-8 over a 5 ERA. Going against Hudson, who struggles against lefties. And we know the Brewers can pack up powerful lefties in that lineup behind Christian Yelich. I like runs to be scored here, Teddy. I would look at this more from a totals perspective, look towards the over. But what are you thinking here as 2 teams vying for the playoffs in the NL Central?
I certainly wouldn't talk you out of an over recommendation in this ballgame or an over wager. We have the Cardinals and Cubs tied for first, and the Brewers now 2 games back. So these 3 teams are going to be in it into September and beyond. Brewers and Cardinals, by the way, play 9 more times. This is one of 9 meetings between these 2 teams, so likely to have a big impact on who's going to win the division, who's going to make the wild card, and who's going to be on the outside looking in. Now, 2 teams headed in opposite directions right now. Cardinals on a nice little streak. They've won 7 of their last 9. The Brewers lost 4 of the last 6. The Brewers pitching got bombed, obviously, over the weekend in Milwaukee. And Zach Davies, he's coming off the injured list to start here. He's dealing with back stiffness. His quote, "I think I'll be tight and sore in between starts. That's the nature of it, but we can manage it. We can work on it and be good to go for each start from here on out." All right, that's not a bet on quote by any stretch of the imagination. The Brewers pitching staff isn't bet on. The bullpen's not bet on right now, but Yelich, who came back dealing with his own sore back, monster weekend. When he's hot, it could be a problem because Dakota Hudson, pitched well against KC last time out. Prior to that, he'd been lit up in each of his 3 previous starts. And his track record against Milwaukee, not good. A 10.13 ERA against the Brewers this season. Last time out, gave up 6 runs, 8 hits, and 3 walks in just 3 2/3 against this Brewers lineup.
Teddy, we got segment 4, off the mic. Never too late to teach a lesson. We're talking about the Brave star, Ronald Acuna Jr., benched on Sunday. What'd you see here?
I love it. Honestly, I love it. Snicker nailed it. And, of course, the whole purpose of Off the Mic is that, we get to have opinions about stuff that's going on and share them because everyone's got opinions on this stuff. And this is one where, hey, look, he thought it was a homer. It wasn't a homer, hit off the wall, and you end up with a single. The manager is right to sit this guy down. Atlanta, they're playing, they're in first place. They're setting a tone for a playoff run. Snitker nailed it. Another reason why I like this manager. And I think Acuna got it right, too. Hey, I screwed up. I'll do better next time. That's exactly what we expect to hear from a young player just learning his way around Major League Baseball.
All right, Teddy, good stuff for segment 4, Off the Mic. For Teddy Covers, I'm Drew Martin. Guys, thanks for tuning in. And best of luck with your bets. Teddy, how else do we close this down, man?
Hey, you nailed it, Drew. I appreciate you filling in for Donnie Rightside. I believe Donnie will be back tomorrow. But thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us right here on That Betting Show sportsbookreview.com.